Welcome back to the third episode of the SummerSlam Rewind, where I am going back and watching every single SummerSlam from 1988 to 2023 in anticipation for 2024. With that being said, on today's video, we are covering SummerSlam 1993 and 1994. But before we get to that, are you tired of your doink being a clown? Stop being a dead man in bed. It's time for your giant Gonzalez to get the win. Rise to the occasion with Bluechew, the chewable tablet that helps you have better sex. For more information, check out the link in the description box below. But now let's get right into SummerSlam 1993. So, first and foremost, I want to start off by saying that coming off of SummerSlam 1992 in Wembley Stadium, it was kind of hard to get back into SummerSlam when you don't have such a big venue like the one that we had in 1992. And of course, because I'm watching these back to back, it's a little bit more noticeable. So it wasn't like that giant spectacle. I want to kick things off with Shawn Michaels defeating Mr. Perfect via countout for the Intercontinental Championship. And finally, a SummerSlam where the Intercontinental Championship did not change hands. This was the highlight of the show for me, particularly because I really enjoyed watching Shawn and Mr. Perfect wrestle. I say this all the time, but you can always tell which guys were just on a different level, especially during this time period. And seeing Shawn Michaels and Mr. Perfect work with each other, they just moved at a different pace. They moved differently than so many of the other wrestlers. So for that reason, like this match tends to stand out, especially when I'm going back and watching these all so closely together. What's also kind of fun about watching these old wrestling shows is that you see people react to moves that they don't react to really anymore. And so that really kind of tells you where we're at this point in time. And during this entire match, Diesel kept getting involved, and I was dying because at one point, finally, Mr. Perfect has enough and he goes out there and he starts fighting Diesel. But the funny part is that commentary is like, how do you hit a man with glasses? Because Diesel had sunglasses on. They're like, how do you hit a man with glasses? He had sunglasses on. Anyways, that line killed me. And unfortunately, this ended up screwing Mr. Perfect. He ends up getting counted out because he was out there dealing with Diesel. And so in the end, after Shawn Michaels wins, you see Mr. Perfect go right after Diesel. And this next match, I could not wait to talk about. It was the 1-2-3 Kid versus Erwin R. Shyster, the IRS. And all right, so many of you guys know this, but I worked with Sean Waltman for several years on his podcast 12360, and so we kind of go way back. I'm just gonna say we go way back. And so I worked with him for about 3 years on his podcast. So I actually have watched so many of his matches, including this one, because we would go back and cover moments of his career, of course. However, I hadn't seen this match probably in like maybe 2 years. No, actually a little bit more, like 4 years or so, around there. And I always like going back and watching old 1-2-3 Kid matches because I could never ever get over just how little he looked. And it's crazy to think because when you think of all of the things that he ended up being a part of in pro wrestling, from the NWO to DX and just all of that and everything in between, it's funny to me that, you know, that's how he started, was as the 1-2-3 Kid, and it's adorable. And I loved watching his early promo, especially the one that he did at this particular show, because he's presented as the quiet and shy kid. And then, of course, we would know him as the guy that's always sticking out his tongue and doing cool shit, right? But the best part about watching the 1-2-3 Kid, is I mentioned earlier with the Shawn Michaels Mr. Perfect matches, you can always tell when people are wrestling differently from the people of their time. And Sean Waltman was definitely one of those. When he went in there as the 1-2-3 Kid, like he was doing things that you weren't really seeing in WWF. And so watching him go out there and just be like fast and fun. And I mean, there was one moment where like, IRS threw him up in the air, and when he came down, he like drop kicked him, and that garnered like such a cool reaction from the crowd because they were like ooh and ah. And so I always love watching this. Also, commentary was hilarious during this because they kept making poking fun at him for being a kid, right? And one of the things they said was, oh, this is the first time that he's out past 8 o'clock. And it's just funny. It's just funny, like going back and seeing all of that. And it's probably like the most heartwarming portion for me, at least, going back and rewatching all of this. Also, while watching this match, I started thinking, if the 1, 2, 3 kid came around today, if this was something that he just started doing today, let's just say that, I think he would instantly be a fan favorite. And so there are very few people that to this day, you can still say, damn, if that happened right now, I would be hella interested in this person or this match. And that to me was the 1, 2, 3 kid. Now, moving on to the next highlight. So the next highlight that I want to get into is the Bret Hart, Doink the Clown, Jerry Lawler situation. So this is interesting because the first half I did not like, but the second half I did like. So the whole thing here is Jerry the King Lawler is faking an injury and basically saying that he cannot wrestle Bret Hart, that he hasn't been cleared, that his leg is all messed up, he's out there in crutches, but don't you worry, he's got Doink the Clown to come in and replace him, right? So Bret and Doink going to have this match, and I'm sorry, I could just not. I tried so hard to get into this match and I just couldn't. I felt like, given everything that happened afterwards, this match could have been cut in half so that we could get to what people really cared about, which was Jerry the King Lawler and Bret Hart. Because we all knew Jerry the King Lawler was essentially faking his injury. Like, we all knew this, and we all were anticipating him to go in there and try and screw Bret Hart. So I wish we would have gotten to that point a lot faster. So Bret wins this portion of the match due to disqualification because Jerry the King Lawler goes in there and hits him with the crutches. So then Jack Tunney comes out and basically says that Jerry the King Lawler has to go in and do this match with Bret Hart. And if he doesn't, he would be banned from the WWF. So he has no choice. So finally, we get to this match with him and Lawler. And what happens here is that we end up getting Bret Hart defeating him with the sharpshooter. However, I loved the aftermath of this because Bret Hart would not drop the sharpshooter at all on Jerry the King Lawler, like at all. Everybody and their mothers came out to try to break this up, but he would not drop the sharpshooter. And so, in order to punish him, this I did not love, but in order to punish him, they decided to finally, once he broke the sharpshooter, they decided to reverse the decision, and then they gave the win to Jerry the King Lawler. I hated that, and I've hated that whenever it's happened in pro wrestling, whenever they do a reversal like that. I've always hated it, so I hated it then. I hated it anytime it's happened in recent history, and so I was never a fan of that. But I did just love that Bret would not let go of the sharpshooter because Jerry the King Lawler had just pissed him off so much to the point where you truly believe that Bret absolutely hated Jerry the King Lawler. This next thing that I want to bring up, I was watching Ludwig Borga versus Marty Jannetty, and I was thinking of this, and I kind of kept thinking about this multiple times as I've gone back and watched old shows. Hell, I was thinking this as far back as my WrestleMania Rewind, and let me just say, if there was one move that I could absolutely erase and never ever see again in pro wrestling, it's the bear hug. I'm sorry, guys. I absolutely hate bear hugs. I think they're so absolutely incredibly boring and dull, and they do not make me feel like anything is happening. And I don't care whatever your argument is, again, whatever your argument for the bear hug is, I don't care. That's how much I hate it. I won't even listen to reason. I won't listen to anything. I hate the bear hug. Erase it from everything. Never want to see a bear hug ever again in my entire life. The Undertaker versus Giant Gonzalez. Oh my God. If I was podcasting during this time, I would be so freaking pissed that we were going to have to see Giant Gonzalez versus The Undertaker again. Oh my God. I remember just hating their match when I saw it during my WrestleMania Rewind. And it was so awful. It's like one of the worst matches I'd ever seen. And then I'm sitting here and I'm like, no, I have to watch them wrestle each other again. No, I'm not kidding you guys. I'm not a fan of The Undertaker and Giant Gonzalez. And the worst part is, okay, so the reason why I did not like this match was because I feel like it was so slow. It was like one thing would happen. So Giant Gonzalez was the one basically like getting the upper hand on The Undertaker during this match. He was the dominant one. And for a good period of time. So with that, he would do something, spend a really long time walking or just trying to get to the next move. So between one move to the next, I felt it was like 40 minutes in between. That's an exaggeration. Of course, it was not. I'm just trying to emphasize how slow paced this match was. I felt like I was just watching him walk. The only thing that saved this match and made this match better to me than their WrestleMania match was because Paul Bearer was out there. But it's not really saying too much about this match being better than the WrestleMania match. I just felt the need like I had to choose. So there you go. And the other highlight that I want to talk about is Lex Luger defeating Yokozuna via countout, I may add. I absolutely hated this. I was not a fan of the match. I thought the match was absolutely terrible. And it's interesting too because I've always had so much respect for Yokozuna. I love watching Yokozuna. I don't know exactly why. Maybe to me, I just find him captivating because of his size or just because he just looks so scary, right? But this match, there was really nothing to grab a hold of. But on top of that, the finish was so embarrassing because you had Lex Luger win via count out. Yokozuna gets thrown out and he gets counted out. And Lex Luger is doing this massive celebration, but he doesn't actually win the WWF championship because it was due to count out. So you kind of make him look like a dork, having him celebrate like, yeah, woo, just won. Yeah, but you didn't win the title. What are you doing? That to me is how you kill a babyface. And so I was not a fan of this at all. Best match, I gotta give it to Shawn Michaels defeating Mr. Perfect because I just enjoyed that match most out of all of them. The worst match, I have to give it to Ludwig Borga defeating Marty Jannetty by submission. I just wasn't feeling it. And then the MVP of this show is Bret Hart. Even though I didn't love the stuff with Doink the Clown, I really just love the way they made me truly believe that he absolutely hated Jerry the King Lawler. And I bought into all of the shenanigans and I did enjoy the aftermath of him locking in the sharpshooter and not letting go on Lawler. I have to give the show a rating of 4 out of 13 because so far it's been the weakest show and I have higher expectations for it. So I'm not comparing this show to like 1988 SummerSlam because 1988 was the first one in such early years. So I was being a little generous with the earlier years. Now as we move on, my expectations have gotten higher. Alrighty, so with that being said, let's move on to 1994. We finally got a women's match that actually happened. So Alundra Blaze defeated Bull Nakano, and this was a fun little matchup here. It wasn't too long, but it was very well wrestled. I mean, they're both really great workers, and so I enjoyed this. And this was technically the first Women's SummerSlam match, because the first one was supposed to be Queen Sherry and Sapphire, but if you recall, that one never ended up actually happening. So finally, we got some physicality between the women here. There was a great reaction seeing Bull Nakano do the leg drop off the top of the rope. I thought that was very cool to see even back then. And then Alundra Blaze, when she did her suplex into the pin, oh, beautiful bridge work. You guys know I'm a sucker for that kind of stuff. So shout out to Alundra Blaze for that. Another highlight of the show, Razor Ramon defeating Diesel for the WWF Intercontinental Championship. So the whole entire time, Shawn Michaels was trying to help his bestie, Diesel, basically cheat. Like anything he was trying to do, he was getting in the way, doing absolutely everything possible to screw Razor Ramon and help Diesel get the victory. But eventually, his plan backfires, and at one point, you see Kevin Nash holding on to Razor Ramon, and the referee's down. Shawn Michaels decides to super kick Razor Ramon, but Razor Ramon moves out of the way, and he ends up super kicking Diesel instead. And Razor Ramon ends up winning the Intercontinental Championship here. So this was fun. I enjoyed the entire story across the board. And of course, we'll be talking more about Shawn Michaels and Razor Ramon later on in the SummerSlam journey. And then we also had Tatanka defeat Lex Luger. So this match was super generic, but what I did like about this was that the $1 Million Man was secretly working with Tatanka. And Tatanka was all acting like he wasn't, but then he ended up working with him. And so they sold me a ticket. I thought Tatanka working with Ted DiBiase was pretty damn hilarious because he sold out. And then everybody's chanting, "You sold out, you sold out." So they definitely helped me gain a lot of sympathy for Lex Luger during this entire story. And this next big highlight that we have to get into is Bret Hart defeating Owen Hart inside a steel cage for the WWF Championship. So I had seen this match, but God, it has probably been over 10 years or more since I've rewatched this match. And let me tell you, this match made me forget that it happened a million years ago, and I got so into it like I had not seen this match before. And dude, I freaking loved it. Like, I can't even begin to tell you guys how much fun I had going back and watching this match. Like, this didn't feel like work to me. This truly just felt like plain enjoyment. That's what this was. I mean, of course, I love the story of Owen being in Bret's shadow. We've talked about their match in their WrestleMania 10 match when I did the WrestleMania Rewind, and so we're coming off of that. We're a couple months after that, where at the end of WrestleMania 10, we see, even though Owen defeated Bret, it was Bret who ended up winning the title that night. And so once again, it was like Owen was in his shadow again. So a whole entire long story. We finally get to the steel cage match here. And the whole entire time, guys, they did such a great job of every time you thought one of these guys was going to escape the cage, the other one found a way to bring him back in. And I'm not kidding you, my notes on this match are like yay long because there was just so much that happened. So many moments where you thought, "Oh my god, it's going to be over. It's going to be over." And then it wasn't. They really built it up, man. Like, please, if you guys want to go back and watch anything, if these SummerSlam Rewind videos inspire you to do anything, please let it be going back and watching Bret versus Owen in a steel cage match, because me explaining it, what went down, will not do this match justice. All I got to say is that when Bret finally got, I mean, oh, and there was so much madness in this. Like, I just felt like they really, like, their pride was really on the line, because Bret was sick and tired of, everything that Owen had done up to that point. Owen was so desperate to win this and prove everybody wrong. Like, their stakes were very high. And I remember there was this one part where Bret just starts punching Owen so freaking hard. And I'm like, dude, what? It was great. Bret eventually wins, and the way that it happens, Owen gets like stuck upside down on the cage, and so Bret jumps off. It was so good, but also just like the built up in terms of like the day of. They had the family members there, so like the whole Hart family's there, and they're interviewing them right before the match, right? Asking them, "Oh, who do you think's gonna win?" Whatever, right? So after the match ended, Jim the Anvil Neidhart, who had sided with Owen Hart during this, he ends up going in and attacking Bret Hart, and then they lock the steel cage. Jim is beating up on Bret, and Owen is trying to stop everybody else from coming in, like Bruce, British Bulldog. Like, he's stopping everybody from trying to get into the cage to help out Bret Hart. And then eventually British Bulldog does get in there, and so then runs them out. So, God, talk about the drama in this match. Also, remind me to never be part of the Hart family because of the drama. Too much drama. But dude, please just go back and watch this match, guys. Please, I cannot stress this enough. Go back and watch the match. All right, so next highlight. I cannot believe that I have to talk about this match right after talking about Bret versus Owen, and it's the Undertaker versus the Undertaker. This was so stupid. This was so stupid. And I get it. Maybe it was different back in the day. Whatever. I don't know. So I had never seen the Undertaker versus the Undertaker. I had seen highlights or clips, but I never saw the entire thing. I just didn't. I just didn't pique my interest ever. And so this was just the part that drove me the absolute craziest about this is that commentary was selling it to us like it was, and they had to do this, I know, but they were selling it to us like we didn't have eyeballs of our own. We have eyes. The fake Undertaker looked nothing like the real Undertaker. His beard was red. His beard was red. Okay, what are we doing here? This was super freaking lame. Taker wins. I think it was like 3 tombstones, the real Taker. And then afterwards, he puts the fake Taker into a casket. And then later on, he disappears. It's really, really silly. I just felt like, what? What did you think of the fan? Like, what did they think of wrestling fans back then? Like, how dumb did they think we were that we would actually buy this? And I know a lot of people did. If you were a child, great. If you were a child and you bought this, phenomenal. But as an adult, I feel like no, this is just too much. Even back then in 1994, it was too ridiculous. And it's like when you're coming off of Bret and Owen and then doing this, it's night and day difference, guys. Night and day difference. Best match of the night, hands down, my friends. Bret and Owen steel cage match. Worst match because of the silliness of it all. The Undertaker versus the Undertaker. MVP, Bret Hart, because of that phenomenal matchup. And then my rating, primarily, I gave this show a really high rating just because of that steel cage match. 11 out of 13. That's it for 1993 and 1994. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below, and I'll see you guys back here tomorrow for another video.